The streetlight flickered above Lincoln Avenue, casting uneven shadows across the wet pavement. Alina Brooks locked the restaurant's back door, her shoulders tight after 10 hours on her feet. 6-year-old Nora's small hand gripped hers, the child's other arm wrapped around a worn backpack that held homework and a half-eaten sandwich from the kitchen. Tonight's dinner. "Can we go home now, Mommy?" Nora's voice carried the weight of exhaustion only children forced to grow up too fast understood. "Almost, baby." Alina pulled her daughter closer, scanning the empty street. Chicago's November wind cut through her thin jacket. 3 blocks to the bus stop, then 40 minutes home. Then, "Mommy." Nora stopped walking. That man. Across the street, a figure leaned against a brick wall. Not the casual lean of someone waiting, the desperate lean of someone who would fall without support. His white dress shirt, expensive even from this distance, was open at the collar. 4 buttons undone. Something dark marked his neck. A tattoo, maybe. His head tilted back against the brick, face turned toward the sky like he was searching for something he'd lost. Then his knees buckled. Alina's nursing instincts fired before logic could interfere. She'd dropped out of the program 3 years ago when Nora's father left, and the bills became impossible, but muscle memory didn't forget. "Stay right here." She guided Nora to the restaurant doorway. "Do not move." The man was Korean, mid-40s she guessed, with sharp features currently glazed with sweat despite the cold. His breathing came shallow and rapid. When she touched his wrist, checking his pulse, his eyes cracked open, dark, disoriented, fighting to focus. "Sir, can you hear me? What did you take?" "Nothing." The words slurred. His accent was slight, Americanized. "Didn't eat." Recognition clicked. Hypoglycemia. She'd seen it during her clinical rotations. "Nora," she kept her voice calm. "Bring me the sugar packets from my apron, the whole stack." Her daughter appeared within seconds, small fingers clutching the white packets. Smart girl. Always listening. Alina tore 3 open, poured the contents directly onto the man's tongue. "Don't swallow, let it absorb." He tried to pull away, pride fighting survival instinct, but his body had already made the choice. He stilled. "More." She emptied 2 more packets. "When did you last eat?" "Yesterday morning." Each word took effort. "Jesus." She rocked back on her heels, doing the math. Over 30 hours. No wonder his blood sugar had crashed. "You got anyone I can call?" "No." Fast. Definite. Then softer. Sent them away. The sugar was working. Color returned to his face, awareness sharpening in his eyes. He looked at her directly for the first time. Actually looked like he was cataloging every detail. The faded work shirt with Alina embroidered over the pocket. The natural hair she'd pulled into a bun 12 hours ago, now half fallen. The brown skin of her hands still steadying him, then his gaze shifted past her to Nora, who watched with the solemn intensity children developed when they understood adults could break. "She asked you to help." Not a question. She did. Something changed in his expression. Not gratitude, something heavier, like he'd been weighed and found wanting. "I'm Alina Brooks, this is my daughter, Nora." She pulled back, assessing him with professional distance. "You need food. Real food. Not sugar packets. I'll manage. You'll pass out again in 20 minutes. She stood, brushing off her jeans. Decision made. "There's a diner 2 blocks north, open all night. You're going to walk there with us, order whatever they'll bring you fastest and eat it. You don't need to—" "I know." She met his eyes. "But I'm going to anyway, because that little girl asked me to, and I don't lie to my daughter about whether people are worth helping." He stared at her for a long moment, then with visible effort pushed himself upright. He was taller than she'd estimated. 6'1", maybe 6'2". The white shirt was custom-tailored, she realized now, the kind that cost more than her monthly rent. "Min Kyung." He offered it like a test. Choi Min Kyung. The name meant nothing to her. She nodded, turned to Nora. "Come on, baby." The walk to May's 24-hour diner was silent, except for their footsteps and Nora's occasional glances at the man beside them. He moved steadily now, though Alina noticed how carefully he controlled each step. Pride. It radiated off him like heat. May herself, a 60-something black woman who'd run this place for 30 years, took one look at their group and pointed to a corner booth without comment. Chicago's South Loop taught people when to ask questions and when to just pour coffee. Bacon, eggs, hash browns, toast, Alina ordered for him, and orange juice, large. Min Kyung started to object, caught her expression, and surrendered. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. You're paying. A smile ghosted across her lips. I saw that watch. He glanced at his wrist, a Patek Philippe that probably cost more than a car, and for the first time, something like amusement touched his face. Nora climbed into the booth beside her mother, studying Min Kyung with unconcealed curiosity. Why didn't you eat? Nora, it's all right. Min Kyung focused on the child with unexpected gentleness. I forgot. Sometimes adults make foolish choices. Mummy says forgetting to eat isn't a choice. It's neglect. Alina's cheeks warmed. That was about not skipping meals yourself, baby. But it's true for everyone. Nora's logic was 6-year-old absolute. Right? Right. Min Kyung's voice softened further. You're very wise. The food arrived. Alina watched him eat. Methodical, controlled, nothing wasted. Prison habits, maybe. Or military. Something that taught you to finish what was in front of you because you didn't know when the next meal would come. What do you do, Mr. Choi? She kept her tone light, conversational. I manage. Business interests. Import, export. Some real estate. Vague enough to mean anything. But the way May had looked at him when they walked in, recognition followed by careful neutrality, suggested it meant something specific. Mommy manages tables at the restaurant, Nora volunteered, and bills, and me. I imagine that last one is the hardest. Min Kyung's attention stayed on the child. Do you go to school? Franklin Elementary, 1st grade. I can read chapter books now. Impressive. They talked, Min Kyung and Nora, about books and school and the stuffed rabbit she carried in her backpack. Alina watched the transformation, fascinated. This man who'd been barely conscious 20 minutes ago, now engaged with her daughter like nothing else in the world mattered. He asked questions, listened to the answers, didn't patronize. The last man who'd done that was Nora's father, before he decided fatherhood wasn't worth the effort. An hour passed. Min Kyung's color had fully returned, his movements sure. He excused himself to the restroom, and May appeared with fresh coffee. You know who that is, honey? Alina's stomach tightened. Should I? Choi Min Kyung runs the Korean operations in the South Loop. Has for 10 years. May's voice stayed low, matter of fact. He's not violent, far as anyone knows, not like some, but he's not a businessman either, not the legal kind. The words settled like stones. Mafia. Of course. That explained the expensive clothes, the careful vagueness, the way he'd been alone on a street corner at midnight. He was sick, Alina said quietly. Hypoglycemic. Could have died. And you helped him. May squeezed her shoulder. That's who you are, but now you know who he is. So, you be careful, Alina Brooks. When Min Kyung returned, Alina saw him differently, the precise way he moved, the awareness in his eyes, constantly tracking the diner's other occupants, the deference in May's tone when she brought the check. He paid cash. Left a $100 tip on a $30 meal. Outside, the cold had deepened. Nora yawned against Alina's side. Thank you, Min Kyung said, for your help and your company. You're welcome. Alina hesitated. Will you actually eat tomorrow? Or am I going to find you collapsed somewhere else? I'll eat. Promise. He studied her, this woman with tired eyes and gentle hands who'd chosen to help a stranger because her daughter asked. I promise. Good. She shifted Nora higher on her hip. We should go. Bus comes in 10 minutes. Let me drive you. No. Firm. Final. It's late, it's cold. You have a child. I know what I have. She met his eyes. And I know what you are now, Mr. Choi. So thank you, but no. Understanding flickered across his features. Not hurt, something closer to respect. Then at least this. He pulled a business card from his wallet. Thick stock, embossed lettering, a phone number, nothing else. If you or Nora ever need anything at all. Alina took it. She knew she should throw it away. Knew May's warning was well earned. But something in his expression, Genuine gratitude mixed with something that looked like loneliness made her tuck it into her pocket instead. "Goodbye, Mr. Choi." "Min Kyung." A pause. "And Alina?" She turned back. "Your daughter is lucky to have someone who teaches her that people are worth helping." His voice carried weight she didn't fully understand. "That's rarer than you know." Then he walked away, disappearing into the Chicago night like he'd never been there at all. On the bus, Nora's head heavy against her shoulder, Alina pulled out the card. The streetlights flickered past, illuminating the embossed numbers. She should throw it away, should forget this ever happened. Instead, she slipped it back into her pocket and watched the city blur past the window. 3 days later, she learned exactly how much Min Kyung's promise was worth. The eviction notice appeared on a Tuesday, taped to her apartment door like a scarlet letter, formal and final. 30 days to pay $4, $200 in back rent or vacate the premises. Alina stood in the hallway, third-floor walk-up in a building that smelled like old grease and broken promises, and felt the walls close in. She'd been juggling, moving money between credit cards, promising landlords extensions, picking up double shifts. But Nora's asthma medication had tripled in cost when her insurance changed, and the restaurant cut hours after the health inspection, and the juggling had finally failed. 30 days. Thanksgiving was next week. Christmas coming. She had $340 in checking, and 3 decades of proof that life didn't pause for convenience. At work that night, she moved through her shift on autopilot, smiled at customers, refilled coffee, pretended the world wasn't ending. When she finally collapsed into the break room during her 10-minute break, May found her with her head in her hands. "What happened?" Alina told her, watched sympathy and helplessness cross the older woman's face in equal measure. "I can ask the church. They helped last year. Can't keep going back to that well. Family? You know I don't have any. Not here." Her mother was in Atlanta, working 2 jobs herself, and sending every spare dollar to Alina's brother in prison. "I'll figure it out, I always do." But May's expression said what Alina was thinking. This time the math didn't work. That night, lying awake on the second-hand couch while Nora slept in their shared bedroom, Alina pulled Min Kyung's card from her wallet. The embossed numbers caught the streetlight filtering through the window. If you or Nora ever need anything. She thought about May's warning. About the careful way Min Kyung had said, business interests. About what it meant to accept help from a man like that. Then she thought about Nora's stuffed rabbit, about the school she loved, about stability and safety, and the difference between pride and survival. Her finger hovered over the numbers. She didn't call. The next morning, she was pouring coffee for the breakfast rush when the door chimed. Min Kyung walked in like he owned the place. And maybe he did, she realized. Maybe he owned half the block. He looked different in daylight. The same expensive clothes, but the shadows were gone from his face. He'd eaten, kept his promise. "Miss Brooks." His voice carried across the diner. Every head turned. May's eyes went wide. Alina set down the coffee pot before her shaking hands could betray her. "Mr. Choi." "May I speak with you? Privately?" She should say no. Should remember what he was. But something in his expression, concern, not command, made her nod. They stepped into the alley behind the diner. November wind whipped between the buildings. Alina crossed her arms, as much for warmth as defense. "How did you know I work here?" "I didn't, not for certain." He stayed carefully distant like he understood proximity would feel like threat. "But Nora mentioned the restaurant was 2 blocks from where we met. There aren't many options." "That's not an answer. No, the answer is I asked around, which I know violates your privacy and I apologize." He paused. "But I needed to see you." "Why?" "Because 3 days ago you saved my life, and yesterday I learned you're about to lose your home." He held up a hand as she stiffened. "I have resources. Let me help." "You're having me followed?" "No, but I have. Connections, throughout this neighborhood. And when I asked if the woman who helped me was all right, I was told she wasn't." His dark eyes held hers. "I don't make promises lightly, Alina. I told you to call if you needed anything. You didn't, so I'm here. I don't take money from criminals. I'm not offering money." Calm, unruffled by the accusation. "I'm offering employment. My organization needs someone to manage administrative work, scheduling, bookkeeping, correspondence. Legal work only, nothing you'd be uncomfortable with. The pay is $85,000 annually plus health insurance. The number hit like a physical blow, nearly 3 times what she made at the diner. For filing paperwork, for doing it well and discreetly, and understanding that the people you'd work with require particular handling. You mean criminals? I mean business people who operate in grey areas, some darker grey than others. He didn't flinch from the truth. But the work itself would be entirely legitimate. Payroll, vendor contracts, property management documentation. Think of it as running the administrative side of a complex organization. Alina laughed, bitter and sharp. You're asking me to work for the Korean Mafia. I'm asking you to accept help that lets you keep your daughter housed and fed. The rest is details. Details that could land me in prison. Not if you do exactly what I tell you, which would be handle paperwork, ask no questions about what happens beyond your desk, and go home every night to Nora. He stepped closer, still respectful of distance but present. I'm not a good man, Alina, I don't pretend to be, but I protect what's mine and I keep my word. If you work for me, you and Nora will be safe. Housed, fed, educated, no one will touch you ever, because you own them. Because they fear me, but yes. The honesty was almost worse than lies would have been, at least lies she could dismiss. Why? The question came out raw. Why do you care? You don't know me. I know you stopped when everyone else walked past. I know you taught your daughter that people matter more than convenience. I know you're drowning in debt, that's not your fault, because this country treats healthcare like a luxury. His voice gentled. And I know what it's like to watch everything you've built crumble, because the system is rigged against you. The difference is I found a way to rig it back. I'm offering you the same chance. Alina's chest tightened. And if I say no, then I thank you again for saving my life and leave you alone. He pulled out a different card, law firm letterhead. But I'll also have my attorney contact your landlord. Pay the back rent anonymously through a housing charity. It will be handled either way. I don't want your charity. Then take the job. The wind cut between them. Alina thought about Nora's asthma medication, about the eviction notice, about the difference between right and pragmatic and the increasingly blurred line between the two. I need to think about it. Of course. He handed her the law firm card. My attorney's number, call when you decide. And Alina? She looked up. Whatever you choose, the rent is handled. You're not getting evicted. Not on my watch. He left before she could protest. Alina stood in the alley, the business card burning in her palm like evidence of a deal she hadn't yet made. That night, she called the attorney. Not to accept the job, just to confirm the rent thing was real. It was, paid in full, plus 3 months forward. May found her crying in the break room. He paid my rent. I know, baby. Whole neighborhood knows by now. May sat beside her. Question is, what are you going to do about it? I don't know. But she did. She knew the moment Min Kyung had named the salary, the moment he'd looked at her with something between respect and understanding and said, the system is rigged against you. 2 days later, she called the attorney and accepted the position. The office was in Chinatown, above a restaurant that Min Kyung owned. Legitimate on paper, laundering money in practice, though Alina's job was to never notice that second part. She had a desk, a computer, and a filing system that would have made a military quartermaster weep with joy. Her job was simple. Process invoices, manage schedules, maintain records. The people who came through, hard-faced men in expensive suits, occasionally women with calculating eyes, barely acknowledged her existence. Min Kyung treated her like glass that first week. Professional distance, careful politeness. He gave instructions through his second-in-command, a man named Jay who spoke even less than his boss. It was Jay who explained the rules. You arrive at 9, leave at 5. You don't discuss work outside this office. You don't ask questions about who visits or why. You see nothing, know nothing, remember nothing. And if someone asks me to do something illegal, you tell Mr. Choi immediately. Has that happened before? Jay's expression didn't change. The last person in your position retired comfortably after 8 years. No arrests. No problems. Follow the rules, Ms. Brooks, and you'll do the same. She followed the rules, but working for Min Kyung meant proximity, meant watching him operate with cold precision, meant noticing the small things, how he always arrived before dawn, like sleep was optional. How his jaw tightened when certain names were mentioned, how he kept a photo on his desk, a woman and a young boy, both smiling, both clearly gone. "Your family?" she asked one morning 2 weeks in when he caught her looking. "My wife and son. 7 years ago." The past tense told her everything. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. It was my fault." He closed the frame's cover with quiet finality. "I was building this empire, too focused on power to notice the threats already inside my home. By the time I did..." He trailed off. "Some mistakes you don't get to fix." Alina understood then. The isolation, the deliberate loneliness, the way he'd been alone that night on Lincoln Avenue, sending his people away. "Is that why you helped me?" "Yes." No hesitation. "I saw you with Nora and I thought, this is what protecting someone actually looks like, not controlling them, not building walls around them. Just being present. I'd forgotten that was possible." The confession hung between them. Then Min Kyung straightened, the moment passing. "How is she? Nora? Adjusting to the new apartment?" Because of course he knew about that too. The 3-bedroom in a better neighborhood with actual heat and windows that locked. The place her new salary made possible. "She loves it. Asks about you sometimes." "Tell her I'm well, and that I'm glad she's happy." It became a routine. Small conversations during coffee breaks, updates about Nora's school, careful discussions about everything except the illegal parts of his business. Alina learned he was second-generation Korean-American, born in Los Angeles, raised between two worlds. That he'd taken over his father's organization at 28 when the old man died. That he'd spent 15 years consolidating power and losing everything that mattered in the process. She told him about nursing school, about Nora's father, who'd promised forever and delivered 6 months. About growing up in Atlanta with a mother who worked herself to exhaustion and a brother who'd made different choices about how to survive. "Do you regret it?" Min Kyung asked one evening, when they were alone in the office. "Nursing school. Not finishing. Every day. But regret doesn't pay for asthma medication. You could go back now. Finish your degree." "Maybe," she smiled. "When Nora's older. When things are stable." "Things are stable now." "Are they?" She met his eyes. "I work for the Korean Mafia, Mr. Choi. Stability feels generous." "Min Kyung." His voice softened. "And yes, they are. Because I've made them that way." The temperature in the room shifted. Alina felt it, the attention focusing, the professional distance shrinking. Min Kyung looked at her the way he had that first night, like he was cataloguing details, building a picture, deciding something important. "You should go home," he said quietly. "Nora will be wondering where you are." She went, but she felt his eyes follow her all the way to the door. The shift happened gradually, then all at once. Min Kyung started asking her opinion on business decisions, real ones, not just filing systems, started explaining the context behind certain meetings, started trusting her with information that could bury them both. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked one December afternoon, after he'd detailed a complex real estate deal that involved 3 shell companies and significant tax implications. "Because you're smart enough to understand it, and honest enough not to use it against me. You don't know that." "I do. Certain. Absolute. You could have sold me to the police 10 times over by now. You haven't. You won't." "How do you know?" "Because you're not built for betrayal. It's not a criticism," he added, catching her expression. "It's why I trust you." The trust became mutual. Alina found herself defending him in conversations with May, explaining that organized crime wasn't the same as street violence, that Min Kyung ran a business that happened to operate outside legal boundaries, but didn't deal drugs or traffic people or hurt civilians. "You're making excuses for him," May said gently. "I'm seeing the full picture." "And what picture is that, honey?" "Someone trying to survive in a system that never gave him a chance, same as me, just with different tools." May's expression softened. "You care about him." Alina didn't answer, but later that night, alone in her apartment while Nora slept, she admitted it to herself. She cared. About Min Kyung's rare smiles when Nora drew him pictures, about the careful way he'd taught her Korean phrases to help her navigate the office, about how he'd arranged for a specialist when Nora's asthma worsened, paying out of pocket without being asked. She cared about the man who'd been alone on Lincoln Avenue, sending his people away because he didn't want them to see him break. The realization terrified her. Things shifted again the night of the attempted coup. She was working late, unusual, but Min Kyung had a meeting with investors and needed documentation prepared. The office was quiet, just her and 2 guards downstairs. The gunshot shattered the silence. Alina dove under the desk, heart hammering. Footsteps, shouts in Korean, another shot. Then Min Kyung's voice, cold as death. "Stand down." Silence. More footsteps. The office door crashed open. Min Kyung stood there, white shirt stained with blood. Not his, she realized with dizzy relief. His expression murderous. When he saw her under the desk, everything changed. "Alina." He crossed to her in 3 strides, pulled her up, hands running over her arms, her shoulders, checking for damage. "Are you hurt?" "No." What happened?" "Jay's brother made a move, tried to take my territory. It's handled." His hands lingered on her shoulders. "You shouldn't be here. I should have sent you home." "Who got shot?" "Him. Non-fatal, enough to make a point." She should have been horrified, should have run. But all she felt was relief that he was alive and concern for the blood on his shirt. "You're shaking." Min Kyung's thumb brushed her cheek. "I'm sorry, I never wanted you to see this part. I knew what this was. Knowing and seeing are different." He stepped back, professional distance reasserting itself. "I'll have someone drive you home. Take tomorrow off, paid." "I don't want tomorrow off. I want to make sure you're all right." The confession hung between them. Min Kyung's expression softened, something vulnerable breaking through the carefully maintained armor. "I'm fine, but thank you." A pause. "For caring." "Don't thank me for that." "Why not?" "Because it's not something you should have to earn." The words landed like a blow. Min Kyung stared at her, and Alina saw the moment he understood. She wasn't just an employee, wasn't just someone he'd helped. She was someone who saw him, all of him, and chose to stay anyway. "Alina, don't." She shook her head. "Don't say whatever you're about to say, not tonight, not like this." He nodded slowly. "Then let me take you home. Please." She agreed. In the car, a Mercedes that smelled like leather and expensive cologne, they rode in silence. When they reached her building, Min Kyung walked her to the door. "I'll have security watching the building for the next few weeks. Just precaution." "Is that necessary?" "For my peace of mind." "Yes." They stood in the doorway. Alina thought about inviting him up, about Nora, asleep upstairs, about the impossibility of this man in her life and the inevitability of wanting him there anyway. "Thank you," she said instead, "for keeping me safe, always." The promise was absolute. "Whatever happens, Alina, you and Nora are protected. That's not negotiable." She believed him. That night, lying awake, she admitted what she'd been avoiding for weeks. This wasn't just gratitude or proximity or even friendship. This was something far more dangerous. She was falling in love with Choi Min Kyung. The attack came 2 weeks before Christmas. Alina was walking Nora home from school when the car pulled up alongside them. Black sedan, tinted windows. Her security training, the sessions Min Kyung had insisted on after the coup attempt, kicked in immediately. She grabbed Nora, pulled her toward the nearest storefront, but the car was faster. The door opened. A man stepped out, mid-30s. Korean expensive suit, not one of Min Kyung's people. "Ms. Brooks." Polite, menacing. "I need you to come with me." "Like hell." "It's not a request. Mr. Choi has something that belongs to my employer. We need leverage to convince him to return it." Nora whimpered. Alina pulled her daughter behind her, mind racing. The street was busy, but not busy enough. People walked past, avoiding eye contact, unwilling to intervene. "My daughter has nothing to do with this." "I agree. Which is why she'll stay here while you come with us. Cooperate. And she goes home safe. We'll even have someone call her grandmother." Alina's blood iced. They knew about Nora's emergency contacts, had done their homework. "Mommy." Nora's voice was small, terrified. "It's okay, baby." She kept her voice steady, though her hands shook. "Everything's going to be okay." The man stepped closer. Alina calculated distances, exits, the probability of success if she ran. All of them ended badly. Then she heard it, the roar of an engine, the screech of tires. Min Kyung's Mercedes slammed to a stop 10 feet away. He emerged like violence given form, white shirt, 4 buttons undone. the dragon tattoo on his neck seeming to writhe with fury. 3 men flanked him, all armed. "Step away from them." His voice could have frozen blood. "Now." The man hesitated, looked at Alina, back at Min Kyung. "We just want to talk. You just threatened my people on my street in front of a child." Min Kyung closed the distance between them in 3 strides. "I know who sent you, and I know what he wants. Tell him the answer is no, and if he comes near them again, I'll paint his organization across the South Loop." It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. The man retreated to his car. Alina watched them drive away, then collapsed against the storefront wall. Her legs wouldn't hold her. Min Kyung was there immediately. "Are you hurt? Did they touch you?" "No, we're... Nora." She turned to her daughter, who stood frozen with shock. "Baby, come here." But Nora didn't move. She stared at Min Kyung with wide eyes, processing what she'd just witnessed. The violence, the power. The man her mother had been spending time with revealing exactly what he was. "Nora, it's all right." Min Kyung crouched to her level, voice gentle. "You're safe now. I promise." "You scared them away." "I did." "Are you a bad man?" The question hung in the air. Alina watched Min Kyung's face as he weighed his answer. Honesty versus comfort. "Sometimes," he said quietly, "I do bad things to protect people I care about. That doesn't make it right, but it makes it necessary." Nora processed this with the gravity only children possessed. Then, "Do you care about us?" "Very much." "Then I'm glad you're here." The simplicity of it nearly broke him. Alina saw the crack in his armor, the vulnerability he only showed in rare moments. He'd been called a monster by his enemies, a criminal by society, but to this 6-year-old girl he was simply someone who kept them safe. Min Kyung straightened, offered his hand. "Let's get you both home." In the car, Alina's hands wouldn't stop shaking. Nora dozed against her shoulder, exhaustion and adrenaline winning. Min Kyung drove in silence, jaw tight. "I'm sorry," he said finally. "This is my fault. I should have anticipated." "Don't." Her voice was steady now. "You didn't create this situation, you ended it. I created it by bringing you into my world. No, you created it by existing, by building something that others want to tear down." She met his eyes in the rearview mirror. "And you saved us today. That's what matters. What matters is that you were in danger because of me. What matters is that I'm alive, we're alive, because you got there in time." He said nothing, but his hands tightened on the steering wheel. At her building, he insisted on walking them upstairs. Checked every room, every window, posted guards at both exits. Professional, thorough. Refusing to leave until he'd personally verified their safety. "This is temporary," he said, standing in her living room. "Until I resolve the situation with the rival organization, 2 weeks at most." "And then what? Then things go back to normal?" "Normal?" Alina laughed, bitter and sharp. "Is there such a thing anymore?" Min Kyung looked at her, really looked, past the professional facade, the careful distance they'd maintained. "What do you want there to be?" The question was a precipice, a chance to step back or step forward. Alina thought about May's warnings, about Nora's future, about the difference between safe choices and right ones. "I want honesty," she said quietly. "I want to know what this is, what we are. Because I can't keep pretending that working for you is just a job, that seeing you every day doesn't matter, that I don't care what happens to you. Alina, I'm not asking for promises. I know what you are, what your life is. But I need to know if I'm imagining this, if the way you look at me, the way you showed up today." She trailed off. "Tell me I'm not alone in this." Silence. Min Kyung crossed the space between them slowly, giving her time to retreat. When she didn't, he reached up, fingers gentle against her jaw. "You're not alone." His voice was rough with emotion. "I think about you constantly. Wonder if you're safe, if you're happy, if you regret taking this job being in my life." A pause. "I know I have no right to want you, that I'm offering you nothing but danger and complications, but I do want you, Alina, more than I've wanted anything in years." "Then stop being careful with me. Stop treating me like I might break." "You could, if something happened to you because of me. Then we'll handle it, together." She covered his hand with hers. I'm not asking for easy, Min-kyung. I'm asking for real. He kissed her then, gentle at first, testing. When she responded, pulling him closer, the gentleness gave way to hunger. 7 months of proximity and restraint and denial burning away in the space between one breath and the next. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Min-kyung rested his forehead against hers. This changes everything. I know. I can't promise you safe or normal, or anything resembling the life you deserve. I don't want safe, I want you. Then you have me. Absolute. Final. Whatever that's worth. It's worth everything. They stood like that, holding each other in the middle of her living room while Nora slept down the hall, and guards watched the building and the city moved on outside. The beginning of something impossible and inevitable and terrifying. Real. 2 weeks later, the rival organization was dismantled. Min-kyung never explained the details. Alina didn't ask. But the threat was gone, the guards withdrawn, safety restored. They settled into a rhythm, public professionalism, private intimacy, careful boundaries around Nora, who'd accepted Min-kyung's presence with the adaptability of children, who understood adults sometimes had complicated lives. He taught Nora Korean phrases, brought her books, attended a school concert despite the risk of being seen as anything other than her mother's boss, proved through action what Alina had already known, that beneath the violence and power was someone capable of gentleness. On Valentine's Day, he took Alina to dinner, a small Korean restaurant in a neighborhood far from his territory. They ate bulgogi and talked about everything except business. He told her about his son, Ji-woo, who'd loved science and hated vegetables, and died at 6 years old because Min-kyung had been too focused on power to notice the threats inside his own organization. That's why you helped Nora that night, Alina realized. On Lincoln Avenue, you saw a child and I saw a chance to do what I failed to do before, keep someone safe, actually matter to someone who needed protection. You matter to me. I know. He took her hand across the table. That's still new, still surprising. Get used to it. They were careful, discreet. But Chicago's criminal underworld was small, and word spread. Choi Min-kyung had claimed someone, protected her, which made her untouchable. Alina understood the cost of that protection, the target it painted. But she also understood the value, not of safety itself, but of being chosen by someone who so rarely let himself want anything. Spring came to Chicago in fits and starts. Alina and Nora moved to a better apartment, bigger, safer, in a building Min-kyung owned but didn't operate from. Separate lives, connected lives. On a Saturday morning in April, they sat in Millennium Park. Nora chased pigeons, while Alina and Min-kyung watched from a bench. She's happy, Min-kyung observed. She is. We both are. No regrets? Only one. Alina turned to him. That it took an eviction notice to bring you into our lives. Everything else, I'd choose it all over again. He smiled, rare, genuine, the expression that made him look younger than his 41 years. I have something for you. The box was small, velvet. Inside, a key. To what? The apartment you're living in. It's yours. Legally. No strings. Whether we work out or not, you and Nora have a home. That's not negotiable. Alina stared at the key. At the man who'd gone from stranger to employer to something far more complicated, who'd seen her daughter hungry and desperate and decided to build them a foundation. This is too much. It's not nearly enough. He closed her fingers around the key. But it's a start, for whatever comes next. And what comes next? I don't know. We figure it out together, one day at a time. Nora ran back to them, breathless and grinning. Can we get ice cream? Absolutely. Min-kyung stood, offered both hands, one to Alina, one to Nora. What flavor? Chocolate. They walked together through the park, an unlikely family bound by circumstance and choice, and the kind of love that doesn't ask permission. Alina thought about the woman she'd been 7 months ago, terrified and alone, about the choice to help a stranger in the cold, about how sometimes the right decision looks nothing like safety. Mommy? Nora tugged her hand. Are you happy? Yeah, baby. Alina squeezed Min-kyung's fingers, felt him squeeze back. I really am. The Chicago skyline rose behind them, steel and glass and infinite possibility. The future was uncertain, probably dangerous, definitely complicated, but it was theirs, and that was enough.